G'day and welcome back. Today we're looking at servicing a Powershift transmission in a Ford Mondeo. We'll start with a warning, a disclaimer, whatever you want to call it. This is how I service mine, how I change the oil and filter. I'm not a Ford mechanic. I did this based on the Ford service manual, the Volvo service manual, some other information that's out there on the web, put it all together, and this is how I did it. So if you follow this and mess it up, your problem, not mine. But I think the information in here is pretty solid. As I said, it's come from the Ford service manual, so it should be good. But this is videos for information, education, no, entertainment reasons only. Don't use it for anything else, unless you want to. But that's on you, not me. So we'll start with that. Certainly, if your car's under warranty, you probably need to get a Ford to get it serviced. If it's under any kind of third-party warranty, check the details. We'll go into some of the more reasons why shortly, but yeah, leave it at that. If you follow this, mess it up, your problem. Okay, Ford Powershift, what is that? Ford Powershifts are made by GetRag. This particular one's the GetRag DCT 450. DCT stands for dual clutch transaxle. 450 is the newton meters, the torque rating of the transmission. So 450 newton meters, about 300 and something pound-foot of torque. Should be pretty good for a 2-litre turbo diesel. What's special about it? They've been around since about 2008. Dual clutch, got two clutches. One clutch operates the odd gears in reverse, the other clutch operates the even number gears. Supposed to be more fuel efficient. What else can we tell you about it? Not much. The same transmissions used in Volvo, Mitsubishi and a few other manufacturers. Been around since 2008. This is a dual wet clutch transmission, which is different to the Focus and Fiesta. That's a dual dry clutch transmission. So servicing information in general is probably different. But that's all about that. That's your GetRag DCT 450 transmission as used in your 2008 to 2014 Ford Mondeo. Right, we'll talk about fluid. Of course, there's a Ford fluid. It's got a spec. That spec's WSS M2C 936-A. And of course, Ford has a fluid that matches that spec. It's called Ford BO-DC. So BO, whatever that stands for, body odor-DC dual clutch. That's a green fluid. Here in New Zealand, that costs $75.19 a litre. Bit rich for me because you need at least 6 litres. A few other options out there. We'll put up a wee graphic here. So I've compared for 6 different fluids. I've gone for the Morris Multitrans DCT. I quite like Morris fluids. That one, it says it does no harm in use in relation to the Ford spec. Compare that to the Fuchs Titan fluid. That says it's recommended for the Ford Powershift. It does not make any mention of specs that it meets or exceeds. The Motol actually lists a Ford spec on there. The Valvoline says it has a performance level similar to the Ford spec. And the Castrol Transmax says it has performance claims similar to the Ford spec. So as far as I can see, only really the Ford fluid and maybe the Motol actually meets specifically the Ford spec. So read into that what you will. And you say viscosity seems pretty similar. The Ford looks to be the lightest fluid. However you want to read those numbers, and it stays the thinnest at higher temperatures. They're all pretty similar in terms of density. A few variations in terms of colour. Yeah, don't know what you can read into that. Fluids look pretty similar. Quite a few of them meet GL4 specs, equivalent to a SAE 75 weight oil. But yeah, for me, the Ford stuff's too expensive. The Motol was $25.90 plus shipping per litre. Morris was worked out at $19.81 a litre, and the Morris dudes just down the road, 10 minutes down the road. We've got a Morris distributor. Yeah, so pick whatever fluid you can get hold of. In Europe, the Ford fluid's pretty affordable. It's probably the safest bet. I've listed some quality manufacturers of fluids, but yeah, everyone's got a preference on fluid. I just compared the ones that I could get info on, and I've gone for Morris. Morris serves me well otherwise, so I'll stick to their fluid. Right, in terms of filters, there's 3 options that I found. Got the genuine Ford filter, the one I went for. Vaco also make a filter, and Top Run seem to make a filter. But when I was looking at prices, the Ford seemed to be the same price as the other two, so this is what I went for. If you're in New Zealand, I bought this from a Ford dealer in the UK for about $30. It's a bit better than $138 they want in New Zealand. So yeah, I went with the Ford. You can try the other two, but go for the Ford in my opinion. Right, so when should you service your Powershift transmission? Well, according to the Ford service guide, your Powershift transmission should be serviced every 60,000 kilometres. I think there's also a 3-year stipulation on that as well. But yeah, on mine it was serviced at 87,000 kilometres, so it was done a little bit late. It was 14th of the 10th, 2014, so it was done when the car was 2 years old. So I've done it again at 139,000 kilometres. What's that? 50,000 Ks. That's probably what my interval is going to be. I'm going to do it every 2 years, which is going to be somewhere between 40 and 50,000 kilometres. I'm happy with that, given the state of the fluid that's come out of there. That's what I'm going to stick to. I don't think there's any great harm in over-servicing these. It's not like an automatic transmission that's trying to keep debris and whatever to keep your clutch packs together. This is a manual transmission that has transmission oil. I don't really understand, but that's what I'm going with. So 2 years, 50,000 Ks is what I'm sticking to. Ford says every 60,000 kilometres. So up to you. That's what I'm going with. See the state of the fluid, pretty grim. Probably worth doing every 2 years. Right, so the service procedure. First of all, start your engine. Now, according to Volvo, you warm the fluid to 35 to 45 degrees. You can either check that with a scan tool or with an infrared thermometer against the filter housing. And then once it's warmed up, you then need to move the shifter through each selector position and hold it at each one for 20 seconds before moving on. So you move through all positions, park, reverse, neutral, drive, over to manual, hold it in plus, hold it in minus, back to park, turn the engine off. Then you can drain the fluid. Earlier versions of the transmission had 3 drain plugs. New ones have 2. One's a newer one, 2012, so it's got 2 drain plugs. Right, so I have 2 drain plugs. There's one under the main control chamber, which is the rear one. There's one under the gear set and clutch chamber, which is the larger front chamber. The level plug is just above, well, it's halfway up the gear set and clutch chamber. The fill plug's at the main control chamber. So first of all, you drain your fluid, take your filter off, replace the filter, pre-fill the filter with 100 ml of fluid, give or take. Replace your drain plugs, torque them to 43 Newton meters. Funnel into the fill plug, fill it with whatever fluid you took out. I filled it with 6 litres straight off. You could, supposed to fill it with 5.6 litres, but potato, it works for me. So put some fluid in, run the transmission up to temperature again, with the engine on, clearly. Then you need to check the level. Now to check the level, go through the same procedure. Fluid at the right temp, Move the shifter through all gear positions, holding on each for 20 seconds at a time before moving on. In park, engine off. Then you open up the level plug. Fluid will drain out of there. Fluid will drain out of this gear set and clutch chamber part. That's fine. When it stops flowing, you end up with a dribble. Then you add more fluid in 250ml increments until fluid starts flowing out of here again. As soon as it starts flowing out of there, slows to a dribble, then your level is correct. So you've set your level in the main control chamber, your gear set and clutch chambers at the right level, put your plugs back in, 43 Newton meters, put your airbox back on. Probably didn't mention, you need to take the airbox off to see the fill plug, but that's no biggie. No screws, you just unplug the mass airflow sensor. So plugs back in, tighten it up, job done. Make it a bit easier. You take out the wheel arch liner. Again, just a couple of plastic clips, take it out, get it out of the way, and you can see the filter, you can see the level plug nice and easy. Under tray needs to come off, that's just a series of 10mm bolts, nice and easy. That should be it. So here we go, this is me doing it. So first of all, we move our shifter through all the different gear positions, holding each for 20 seconds minimum. It should take you at least 2 minutes 20 to go through the way. And once we're done, we'll put it back in park. And we'll turn the engine off. So we're going to remove the airbox. So first we'll disconnect the mouth, undo the clamp, pull the airbox out of the way, no screws or anything to hold it in. Now we're going to locate the fill plug on top of the transmission and we'll crack it loose. Here we're going to undo the two drain plugs, one at the front, one at the back. Get all the stinky old fluid out. Little sample for later. The second drain plug. Right, so the filter's located on the left hand side here, just in the wheel well, in the plastic receptacle. So to crack it off you need to lift the retaining clip and do it with a 32mm socket or spanner. I found it easier to get a spanner in than use a socket because the subframe kind of gets in the way. So spin that off, drop it down. Refit our drain plugs before we forget. Two plugs, they get torqued down to 43 Newton meters, 32 foot-pounds. Too much in, because of course as soon as we dump this fella in, we'll put a bit more in than that. Just a little bit, we'll just leave up our O-ring that should come in situ. Tuck that in. We're primed almost to the top, so I'm happy with that, and I'll go screw it on. I know it's quite hard to get a torque socket on there, as I said, whatever, but I've snugged that up nice and tight. I don't think it's going undone. Right, now I drained off 6 litres, so I put 6 litres of new fluid in. You could probably get away with putting in about 5.6 litres, give or take. And then top it up with the level fill process. Probably a bit more economical way of doing it. That's the first 5 litres. Here's our next litre. So I ended up decanting a litre out of a fresh bottle just so I kind of knew how much I was putting in. It's a bit easier to handle. Right, then we'll get this funnel out of the way. Fill the plug back in. I'm not going to torque it up just yet because we will need to adjust the level. Which means adding fluid regardless if it's... It's going back out shortly. Now then we'll put our airbox back in and we'll run it through the gears again, and we take out the level plug. So our fluid needs to be between 35 and 45 degrees Celsius according to the Volvo manual. The Scanter would be better than this, but probably accurate enough for our purpose. Then we're going to go through our gears again, 20 seconds in each position, what she said. Turn the engine off. And we're going to crack off our level plug. Now, fluid should come out of here anyway, and that does not mean our level is correct. You then have to pour additional fluid until it starts flowing out the hole again. There we go, so some fluid's drained out there, so we wait till that stops to a dribble. Okay, so we're down to a drop. Then what we need to do is add fluid in 250ml increments until it starts to run out the hole again. And as soon as this flow slows down to a drop again, then our fluid level is correct. You can even get in there properly. There we go, job done. See how we go from a standing start. Right, so what does the old fluid look like? Here it is, looks quite dark. Still got a green tinge to it. Remember, this is the Ford fluid, so it's green anyway. This was changed just over 2 years and a couple of weeks ago by Ford at 87,000 kilometres. Car's just ticked over 139,000. Doesn't smell burnt, it smells a bit kind of used, but yeah, seems to be in pretty good condition. Here's our old filter. Pretty grimy, no big chunks or anything in there. Used filter. It's only a small little filter. But yeah, that's that one. One thing I did notice, I don't know how well this will show up. I don't know if you can see, there were some, may or may not see that. There are a few kind of sparkles in the bottom of here that looks to be some kind of clutch material. If you Google a picture of the clutch plates, are all kind of a bronzy colour. Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't mean the transmission's about to go bang. But yeah, this was just a routine service. I wasn't trying to fix a problem. The car was running fine. I've not had a single issue in the last 6-7 months, 10,000 kilometres. Never missed a gear. It always changes nicely, no jerkiness, no anything else. It's a purely routine maintenance. So yeah, hopefully we're in for a nice long run with this car and things are all good. Alright, so how did it all go? Well, you saw, the car drives great. Don't know if it's just a placebo effect or what, but it certainly seems to be a little bit smoother. Not that it wasn't smooth to begin with, but nice crisp gear changes, seems to drive pretty well. Quite pleased that I didn't have to pay $589 with Ford for the filter and 6 litres of fluid. My cost me less than $200 for the fluid and the filter, and yeah, seems to work pretty well. One thing I will say about the fluid, 6 litres is kind of pushing it to do the change and get the level right. You'd probably spill into the 7th litre, especially if you haven't done it too many times. I had a few goes just to try and get it right, just to get the right information for you. So I actually used about 8 litres or so, just checking the level procedure and all that kind of stuff. So if you're doing it for the first time, you probably want a bit more than 6 litres. As I said, I used about 8. But yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. Just a few things you've got to do in the right order. That process of changing gears, holding it in each gear for 20 seconds. Not quite sure the purpose of that, especially before draining, but stick with it. It's in the service manual. Go with that. The level procedure, in the Ford documentation, it doesn't mention anything about transmission temperature. It does in the Volvo stuff. Same transmission. We went with 35 to 45 degrees. The way I found that without the scan tool was infrared thermometer onto the filter housing. That's probably going to be a pretty accurate reflection of what the fluid temperature is. So that's where we went there. I've done a few hundred kilometres on the car, still driving great. If anything changes, I'll make an update, but so far so good. Things are looking pretty good. Saved myself a heap of money and a bit of peace of mind. But final tip, if you want a long-lasting vehicle with no issues, get the 6-speed manual. Stay away from any kind of automatic, semi-auto, dual clutch, whatever the frig you want to call them. 6-speed manual's the way to go. You might have to change your clutch every 400,000 Ks, but I'd rather do that than be sitting on a ticking time bomb waiting for your transmission to explode. So, Badger's top tip, get the manual. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment. share the hell out of the video, and we'll see you sometime soon. Cheers.